Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So welcome back to our LangChain basics series. So in today's video, we are going to discuss about the last four concepts of our LangChain crash course. So those concepts are callbacks, tracing, evaluation, and testing. Okay. So these four concepts all together are quite useful when you want to debug your LLM application. Okay. So it's not just enough to build your LLM application and just let it run, right? You'll find yourself in situations where you want to debug your LLM application and you want to get hold of the intermediary steps that it executes in order to give a corresponding output for a given input, right? So that's where these concepts come into picture. So the first concept is the callbacks. Okay, as the name suggests, LangChain supports some inbuilt callbacks. Okay, inbuilt callback methods, which are listed here. As you can see, there are methods like on chat model start, on LLM start, on LLM end, right? On chain start when you start a chain. So these are the different type of callbacks which are supported by LangChain, which you can actually implement in your code. And you can get hold of the intermediary steps. Now if I just show you one code example, let's go here. If you see here, you can define a class like this, okay, logging handler, and then you can define the methods, okay, on chat model, on model start, on LLM end, on chain start, on chain end. So these are the methods that are defined here in this list. Okay, you have to basically define this in callback functions, and you can actually print the corresponding logs and in intermediary values if you want to get hold of, right? Like what is the current messages that is coming, right? What is the state of the current messages list? What are the other arguments? You can print this in your application when you are running it. Okay, so if you see here, they have defined a class called logging handler. Then they have the callbacks, right? They have passed this class as a list here in this callback handler. You can define multiple classes of this. Then they are just while invoking the chain, here they have defined the chain. While invoking the chain along with the input, you can pass the callbacks as the config here. Okay, so this is how you can actually use the callback feature of LangChain to capture the intermediate states. And if you see here, it is displayed a sample output here, right? Chain runnable sequence lasted started, chain chat prompt template started, like based on each step. Okay, the things will be correspondingly called by LangChain internally, and you will be able to see the intermediary states. Okay, so that was about callbacks. Now let's go to the tracing. So what tracing means is, in order to understand tracing, let me go to this slide. Okay, so if you see here, the entire LangChain application that is there, right? It can be divided into three elementary parts. Okay, one is the project, then the traces, then traces as runs. So these are the three elementary units which you can think that a LangChain application can contain. Okay. So when you have a LangChain based application design, so it will have collection of traces, and each collection is a collection of runs. Now what is meant by runs and what is meant by traces? Now a single run, okay, a run is a single unit of operation that a LLM agent can perform or a LLM application can perform. And a single unit of work can be a call to a single LLM or a single chain. It can be a prompt formatting, like you have a prompt.invoke we do, that can also be considered as a run, right? When you do runnable lambda invocation, when you invoke runnables in LangChain, so those are actually known as runs, okay, which does nothing but a unit of work. Then traces are nothing but a collection of runs. So run is the first first elementary unit in LangChain terminology. Then a trace is a collection of related runs that performs a single operation. That means, let's say we have defined a chain. Okay, we have defined a chain which can make a call to the LLM, then generate the response and parse it to a output parser. Okay, and then finally it can, if required, it can call a external tool also. It can do RAG also. All those things are actually individual runs, and collection of those things as a whole is known as trace. Okay, so that is about traces. So using Langsmith, actually you can see what are the traces that are there, right, for a given application. For example, in they've defined it slash chat LLM application, let's say they have defined, and in that there are two main trace. One is the retriever and one is the chat OpenAI model, right? So you can actually see the different type of traces and runs in the Langsmith, using Langsmith. So maybe we'll see about this in another video, the practical application of these things. But for now, let's understand the theory only. Okay. And as you told, a project is a collection of traces. So project is nothing but a collection of traces, and traces that are related to a single type of application or which performs a single type of operation or activity for us. All right. So that was about traces in LangChain. And then comes the crucial part of evaluation. See, it's not just enough for a LangChain application to generate a input given generate an output given an input query, right? We have to evaluate whether the output that has been generated by the LangChain agent is, I mean, valid or not. It cannot just throw out some random output, right? So in order to evaluate our LangChain application, there is a concept of evaluator, okay, or evaluation. The practical application of this evaluation, I have to create a separate video because that will take a, I mean, entire video, and there I'll show you the code examples, okay, and we'll see a evaluator engine there, and we'll create some components, evaluator components, which will evaluate the output quality of our LLMs. Okay, but for now, first just let's understand what do we mean by evaluator. Now, what does evaluator does? Evaluator will first have some, let's say, samples to reference rate as the reference data. That means it will have some. Let me just open this slide. Evaluator will have some sample data set, okay, some reference data set that it can refer to, and the sample reference data set will have some sample input and the corresponding desired output. That means we are just stating the LLM that if input is this type, I am expecting a output of this kind. Okay, so based on that, we can then use the evaluators. So what are evaluators? Evaluators are nothing but some functions. Okay, you can have your own custom evaluator, or you can use the inbuilt evaluators that are given by LangChain. So you can do both. So those evaluators are the actual functions which will take in the input of the sample data set or reference data set and the actual output that it has generated. Okay, LLM given an input query, LLM will generate some output. So that output, the reference data set, these two things will be a part of it will be passed as input to the evaluators. Then our evaluators will generate a score or some kind of string. Okay, so if you see here, the type of the output of evaluator can be a key, okay, and the output can be a score or value, okay. So it can be either a numeric value or it can be a value if it is a categorical, okay. So so this score or value, basically it will determine the quality of the output that it has generated. So based on that, we can evaluate like if our LLM is performing well or not. Now, in order to generate this sample or reference data set that we just discussed about, where we have some test input and reference outputs for the LLM to refer. In order to generate this, we can obviously first we can generate manually. Okay, we can have some our own set of samples of input and output, just like we did in our Mongo query generation, right, where we had our sample query text and sample MongoDB query. In order to strengthen the dataset more, we cannot just have some limited set of examples, right? In order to strengthen our dataset, we can have user feedback placed in place. So when the users will be interacting with our LLM application, given their query, we'll be generating some output. Then we can take feedback from the user whether that output that was there was satisfactory or not. If it was not satisfactory, we can add that input and output pair to our dataset, mark it like it was a negative result that we generated, right? So our LLM will learn from that, like how to rectify the future interaction with the user, right? Then we can have the LLM feedbacks also, because in some cases, let's say instead of having, I mean, along with having user feedback, we can have we can use LLM to label our chatbot conversation as good or bad outputs. Okay, because in some cases user might rephrase their query or ask the LLM to rephrase the output, or try to give some extra insights in order to get the desired output. In those cases, our LLM can learn from that, and it actually inherently and internally it can um, include that data set, or include that input output pair in our data set. So that's how we generate the data set for our evaluation engine. Okay, and obviously we can have some synthetic data. Once we have some few examples, we can artificially generate some samples data. We can ask LLM again to generate some sample data for us once we have some practical real life examples with us. All right, so that's how the evaluation concepts work actually. And as I told, I'll create a code examples on how to evaluate LLM application. So that was about the evaluation concept of LangChain. We'll discuss all these things in detail when we'll be doing a practical application of this. Okay, then the final concept is the testing. Okay, so as we know, every framework that you use, it has some testing framework associated with it, right? So similarly, in LangChain also we have frameworks for doing unit test and integration test. So unit test is where we test our individual functions, just like we do unit test in other kind of frameworks also. Let's say Node.js, you do unit test. In unit test, you test the desired input and output of individual functions, right? Similarly, we can do that here as well. For example, we have a function like this, let's say, where we have a AI message, and then we have the result which will convert this AI message to OpenAI message, and the expected output is that it should be like this, right? We had seen in OpenAI the message format is like this, role and this kind of in JSON object to give the OpenAI message. So this is what this is doing, that kind of simple comparison, and we are doing a set. So this is how you write test cases for individual functions. So that is what unit testing is about. And in integration test, what you can do, you can in integration test you can multiple functions at once. For example, you want to test one tool which we have, right, which does a multiplication for us, and we want to invoke that tool. Okay, let's say we want to test this tool, okay, parrot multiply tool, and there we want to invoke it with, let's say, two parameters. So parrot multiply tool is just a simple tool which multiplies two numbers, and when we invoke that we get the result, and then we can actually write test cases with this asset block, and we can do integration testing as well. Okay, I have not tried out this testing frameworks of LangChain yet. I will definitely try it and share you some practical insights and my experience about how to use these testing frameworks. We'll see some real life code examples as well. Okay, yeah, that was about the four concepts of today, which is quite helpful in debugging your LLM application, and that marks the end to our LangChain crash course series. And I hope I was able to make you understand of this all these concepts, around 15 to 20 concepts we learned with code examples. I hope you were able to get a good hold of this framework. Okay, maybe you might not have understood all of them completely, but still, if you like this playlist, please share it with your friends who is trying to learn who is trying to learn LLMs. So you will definitely like it. So if you like this video and like this playlist, please hit the thumbs up button of this video, and subscribe to my channel. We are targeting to reach 2200 subscribers by the end of this month. So keep supporting. If you have any questions, just ask me in the comment section, or you can have discussion around the topics there. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.